All righty. Hello there, good people. It's Jason, the Green Country Agriforestry. Wow, it's Wednesday. It's been a minute. It's kind of like last week's live stream. Oh, been busy. Like I said earlier in the comments, I've had too many irons in the fire, and turning on the camera has just been kind of an afterthought for a while. Today we did some shooting on more of the pear cider stuff. As you know, whenever you're making cider, or maybe you don't know, whenever you're making cider, after a couple of weeks, after the yeast has been going, you need to take all the old cider off and transfer it to a new container. So the dead yeast that's at the bottom can be discarded. And you do that so that the cider doesn't get a funky flavor from it. So we're doing that today. I was shooting video for that earlier. And while I was shooting the video, got the camera here. While I was shooting the video, we got a delivery from A&L Trucking, which might sound a little bit weird. We got the delivery of a special piece of equipment. Now, the people who are members to the channel know exactly what I'm talking about because I teased it about 2 weeks ago that we were getting ready to do this thing. But for you guys that are just catching up late, the delivery we got is an actual feed pelletizer, not a meat grinder like I unboxed on the live a couple of weeks ago. That was very disappointing. It's like, yeah, this is a meat grinder. This is not what I wanted. They advertised a feed pelletizer for making animal feed. It's a meat grinder. That's just disturbing. But we got an actual feed pelletizer delivered today. Big crate, about maybe 3 foot wide, 1.5 feet deep, and about 2.5 feet tall. And I haven't unboxed it yet. We're going to go ahead and do that. Pardon me, I'm going to have a French fry. I'm going to go ahead and do that in a video here in a day or two. The thing I was shooting today mainly was multitasking. The thing I was doing today was shooting the process of transferring the cider. I'm getting the video off the camera right now. Transferring the cider from the old batch to the new carboy. I have 2 carboys. Sanitized it, got it transferred over there, and now it's going to be able to percolate along for another 2 or 3 weeks or so, and then we'll proceed on to bottling. So I was shooting that video today, and that was fun. We got to demonstrate a new piece of equipment, which it's new to me, called an auto siphon. In the past, whenever I was doing cider, I would have to take the tube, put it down into the carboy or the bucket or whatever I had going, and then start to siphon the old-fashioned way, right? And then put it into where it was going and get it going that way. Not exactly the best way to keep things sanitary, right? But it was the only thing I had. Either that or you had to take a small amount of the liquid, whatever it happened to be. You could always put your thumb on the end of the tube, put the tube down into the container, put your thumb on the end of the tube, pull it up, and just the pressure being kept on by your thumb would keep some of the liquid in the tube. Turn the tube up and let it run down to the bottom, and then seal it back up again and do it over until you had enough liquid in the tube so that whenever you took your thumb off at the end, it would start the siphon. Once again, having to keep your fingers and your thumbs and your mouth on the tubing that you're trying to transfer from one vessel to the other is not precisely sanitary. So we got this new piece of equipment. It's called an auto siphon, and it allows you to get the siphon started without having to touch it with anything unsanitary. Kind of cool. That's in the video that's coming out. We'll probably get that edited by tomorrow, next day after, sometime around there. And great tries. All right. So hi everybody. Let me see here. Who do we have? We've got Sassafras Red, Elton Butterfield, Kimber Rippey, who's heard somebody messed around in the background. That's Kimber and Brendan, her husband, are staying with us for right now. They might show up in the next video because I offered to pay them $0.25 each for every bottle that they wash. We've got a bunch of bottle washing to do. That'll be in that video too, is the bottle washing. Let's see. John Humphrey's in the house. We got Vicky Savage with us tonight. Mary is here, of course. Good Times Homestead with Jen and Steve is here. Hi, Good Times Homestead. I think I was watching some of your videos earlier today, as a matter of fact. Granny Lana is here. Hi, Granny. Kimber says, spelled my name wrong. It's Kember. What are you talking about? Oh, talking. Mary is using autocomplete. Okay. Oh, my goodness. Bug flies are everywhere. Okay, Mary. These flies. We have to talk about these flies. There's flies everywhere. Now, we have flies because we have ducks and ducks poo, and that's one thing. But whenever you leave the back door open, that lets all the flies into the house. And so now we have a house full of flies, Mary. They're everywhere. It's horrible. You got to stop leaving that back door open. All right. Especially now that we mentioned it, you leave the back door open, now all the hobos know that they can come in through our back door. Busy, busy, busy. That's right. Pavlov Sheep says, oh, got to ice distill the site. I need to do an ice distillation one of these days and actually like follow the process and try to get a. If I do that, I need to start out with the hydrometer and get a reading before and after so we can kind of get an idea about how much, what percentage of alcohol we're getting from doing the ice distillation process. But yeah, it's a great idea. Ice distillation, you could do it with your freezer, incidentally, where you take anything that's fermented, be it a beer, wine, cider, whatever you got, and put it in a place where it can freeze, or at least where the water can freeze. And since water and alcohol freeze at different temperatures, you freeze the water part, you pour the rest of it out into a separate container, discard the ice, and then repeat until it no longer freezes. And that's how you do ice distillation. That's one way that you can start out with something like Applejack and get a really really potent alcoholic beverage. Might want to do that. Might want to do that this year. I'll see. I only have one batch of cider going though, so we're going to take part of that batch of cider and bottle it up, and the other part will turn into vinegar because we still need vinegar for salads and everything else you need vinegar for. All right. Ken Jennings in the house. Hi, Ken. I love that Smurf image there. John is saying autosiphon is the one for gas. Well, yeah, you could use the contraption I'm using whenever you see it in the video. You could theoretically use it to siphon gas, but then you wouldn't be able to siphon cider with it. I mean, because gas makes everything kind of nasty. All right. Kimber says, I was already in one with pears in the bed. Really? Were you in that one? I mean, you were in front of the camera while it was shooting at least once, but I don't know. I probably do have you in some of the footage. I think I edited you guys out for the most part, though. The kids running out, and there's no stopping the flies. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Possibly because I got a plate of French fries here. All right. Vicky saying, I would expect that the effectiveness of ice distillation would depend upon how cold the ambient temperature. Well, you've got to get the mass to freeze, right? At least the water part of it to freeze. What? What is it? Well, bring it over here. What is this?
The video with the pears in the bed of the truck. Like I said.
Oh, okay. Yep. There it is. Yep, she did show up. She's the person in blue on the side there. Yeah, it's in there on the last video. There you go. So you are in there. Yeah. Ah. Oh my gosh, so many flies. All right, so I'm in the middle of taking this video off of there. Pardon me for a moment. We're gonna open up my folders. There's that thing there. Okay. I got like 12 minutes. Is it this one I want? It might be this one.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Let's minimize that. We're going to do a quick share here. Let's go, Brandon. All right, I'm going to share this video here. That I've got. Let's see. Where's it at? Chrome chat. No, that ain't it. That ain't it. Where are we at here? StreamYard? No. I don't know. This is movies and TV. That's it. Video file. No, I don't want to do that. That ain't it. I can find it here. All right. Tell you what. Let's try it as a video file. And we'll go to, where is this thing? ESP drive E. There it is. All right. And I think it was this one. Yep, it's that one.
Push this in.
All right. So this is the video I was doing earlier. We're in the middle of siphoning off the old cider, or siphoning off the old cider. Okay, there we go. Somewhere in here.
Hey, what?
In the middle of doing it.
Hey, guess what? Yep.
We got to deliver.
We got something new arriving.
So this truck shows up, and they've got something for us. So I kind of moved the camera, and they brought the thing down on a pallet jack and dragged it out in front of the house. I took the camera over here and shot the video of receiving the said item. You may notice that there's a lot of this on the screen there. There's a lot of this Bermuda grass has kind of gone crazy and out of control around the yard. Now, that's not simply because I'm lazy and I didn't want to cut the grass. It's because of what this particular item is. So this item that we just got, serious process. Brandon, that's Kimber's like, yeah, you've got a gun. Everybody's
You're gonna want to drill with screwdriver bit.
All right. So this is the mysterious box that they delivered today. Very saying, yeah, cut the grass. I didn't know if you could read what's on the bill of
Probably use
lading.
a shade on that so you can see what it is. There you go.
Anyway, so we got this mysterious box delivered. What in the world is in that box? Well, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to tune in and find out later. Like I said, the members know exactly what it is. Does that mean? Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a video and I was unboxing some stuff. I unboxed the cider press, and I had ordered up a feed pelletizer from Walmart. the Walmart online shopping center. And what showed up was not an animal feed pelletizer. It was a meat grinder with an attachment that allows you to extrude, I guess, wet feed pellets or something like that. Not what I was looking for. But they had advertised it as an animal feed pelletizer, and it was not. Just wasn't at all. So anyway, another reason not to shop Walmart. There you go. If you needed any more reasons, and I already knew I shouldn't give them any of my money because they're just politically wrong. They support all the wrong causes. But I thought, well, shoot, I mean, it's $300 as opposed to what I would spend elsewhere. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it's like a smaller version. No, it wasn't. It was just a meat grinder. So the actual animal feed pelletizer showed up today. That's what's in the mystery box. We'll do a video on that here in another day or two. So we're kind of excited about that. We're getting ready to get that unboxed and have a look at it. I need to go and get a 220 volt extension cord so I can hook that up. But just in case the power goes out, I can get maybe a hand crank device that would let me operate it absent of power, because the junction there between the motor and the mill can be operated with a pulley. Anyway, yay! Mary said, "What? You guys are talking about how big?" Yeah, I'm 72 inches tall. I'm 72 inches tall and way too freaking heavy. But yeah, Brendan is 4 inches tall. He's the size of my older brother, so he's half giant like my older brother. I'm used to people that size though. Yeah. French fries are good. All right, let me guys check. Compost the grass. Yeah. So instead of composting our grass, we're going to cut it, dry it, run it through a feed pelletizer, and turn it into duck food. How cool is that, huh? So now the way I figure it, if I take about 3 pounds of Bermuda grass, ranges anywhere from 8 to 19 at the high end, somewhere in between those two, percent protein by weight. And it's higher in protein after it's already gone to seed. So this is one of the reasons why we let the grass grow. Although I hate Bermuda grass and I don't want it around, I was like, okay, fine, we'll let it grow because I've got a use for it. So we'll let it grow out and I'll cut it and we'll run it through the feed pelletizer and turn it into animal feed. All right, so it's anywhere from between 8 and 19% protein. So we take 3 parts Bermuda grass, which is going to average, assuming anywhere from 8 to 19, it's going to average about maybe 10 or 11% protein. And we take 1 part soy meal or peas, or like I use field peas. I can grow black-eyed peas. Take 1 part of that, which is around 46 to 50% protein. Mix that together. That's going to get us our 19 to 20% protein that we really want for duck feed. The ducks aren't going to eat Bermuda grass. They can. They're just not going to. It's too tough. It's too coarse. Whenever it's just growing, that they're not going to eat it. There's a lot of things that they could eat, but they're not going to. Take, for example, tree hay as an example, right? Cottonwood has a really high percentage of protein in those leaves, but a lot of animals aren't going to want to eat cottonwood leaves just as they are. They're not used to it. It's not what they would ordinarily eat. But if you take that and you run it through a mill and turn it into feed pellets, which they're a little bit more used to eating, the fact that that's in the feed pellets is not going to be a turnoff for them. So you can take a little bit of your field corn, a little bit of cottonwood leaves, the grass that you cut out of your yard, provided you don't spray it with pesticides or other crud, run that through this mill and produce animal feed pellets that you can feed to your animals, your ducks, your cattle, your chickens, whatever you've got. So anyway, that's the thing that's coming up here in a short amount of time. Let's see. Mail order bride. That would be the other thing, but I don't think it would fit in the box that small, unless they're from Ukraine. Those Ukrainian girls are pretty tiny. Svetlana.com. Okay. It's a bad no. Climate cops will be coming for you, no doubt, right? God, flies, jeez. Mary's saying, "What's the boot size?" I don't know. Mine are 13 wide. I don't know what size his are. But he just got a new job today. He's going to go work for Allied Electric, which is one of the larger electric companies here in the Tulsa area. Woohoo! Vicky got 2 solid steel broadforks. Nice. Okay, Kimber's saying his boot size is 10.5 to 11. See? He's got little feet. You know what that means. Hello, Joe. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Haven't seen any one of our live streams in a while. I've seen you elsewhere. Let's see. Good night, Elton. Yeah, I was in one of Greg's live streams on Galactic Greg's, the Galactic Greg's channel earlier today, moderating it. There were a few trolls that showed up. Well, you know the people. They show up and they want to spam adult dating services, to put it politely. Those people showed up. They had to run those guys off. Alan's asking if they let me keep the meat grinder for free. I haven't even brought it up with them. I just put it over to the side. Went, well, one of these days I might need a meat grinder, so I'll keep it. But I learned my lesson, and I'm not going to be shopping on the online Walmart site for anything ever again. Because I already did it once against my better judgment. And that's just verification. No, don't give these people your money. They don't deserve it in the first place. And it says, as it turns out, they don't even deliver the product that they advertise. So, yeah, just not going to be shopping there anymore. I'm not going to recommend anybody else do it either. It's funny. I don't take money to advertise poor products at all from anyone, and I get a mailbox full of people going, "Hey, advertise my stuff." I'm like, can I justify the existence of the product that you're trying to sell? No? Well, I'm not going to advertise your product. Sorry. If I can get it myself or make it myself for cheaper, or it's not even a necessary thing, no, I'm not going to advertise your products. I'm not going to do it. But I'm more than happy to tell you not to shop somewhere if it's a bad place to shop. So Walmart, don't do it. Don't spend your money on Walmart. Vicky said, "Mary, my timbering is done and I got a bulldozer." Nice. Okay, so you sold off your timber, Mary. Okay. Vicky sold off her timber on her property and got a bulldozer with the funds, but it takes people who are physically able to do the work. Right now, I should probably send the kids your way. Then again, I don't know. They don't do a lot of work. Kimber's in the next room. They're going to bed. Yeah. It's amazing how trolls never dare show up in person. Oh, she says his boot size is 12D. Okay. Anyway, so Vicky's got 100 acres up there in northwest Arkansas, and she sold off some timber, getting rid of the trees that she doesn't want, which makes up room for her to plant trees that she does want, and then got equipment with the funds. It's a way to do it. And if you get a lot of property you need to work with, sell your timber, hire a forestry mulcher, mulch the trees that were too small to be used for timber, and also the ones you don't want, and then use those funds to either pay off the loan that you got to get the property in the first place, or if you've already got the property paid for, to pay for important infrastructure. In this case, Vicky was getting a bulldozer. That's awesome. Dabs, not jabs. Oh. Joe says he's only 67 inches tall. It's okay. It's fine, Joe. I'm the runt of the litter. Let's see, the next older brother than me is 6'4", and the oldest is 6'9". So I'm a midget. Not a problem. I was day drinking at the time though. So funny story. All right. So Greg was doing a coverage of the Artemis launch while they're getting ready to. I think they were tank testing whenever I came in, and I was day drinking. I was drinking this stuff, right? Because we were waiting for. I was waiting for some things to cool off on the stove. So while we were doing the yeast transfer, or the yeast transfer, while we were doing the cider transfer, since we're going to be losing about anywhere from a half gallon to a gallon of material where the dead yeast is on the bottom, I said, hey, let's replace it. And so I was replacing it with about a gallon of water, anywhere from a half gallon to a gallon of water, with a pound of honey. So I took a pound of honey and I had dissolved it into a gallon of water, had it boiling, covered it up, was letting it cool. So while that thing was cooling, I was like, okay, let's see what's on YouTube. Discovered Greg's was doing a live stream, tuned in, and now we're all caught up. French fries. So I was drinking this stuff, which is 9.5% alcohol. Ooh. The only reason I had this was because Brendan was in need of a money order to get his license, his electrician's license. So he just gotten hired on, and I didn't have cash in my pocket. Well, I had cash. I had $100 bill in my wallet. I didn't have any smaller amount. So I handed him the 100 and said, "Hey, here you go. Run to Quick Trip, get me some beer, take the rest and get your money order." Bring me back the change. And he brought back this stuff, which is Voodoo Ranger Juice Force IPA. It's a hazy Imperial IPA. Actually, not bad at all. It's got some decent hops in it. Really good for relaxing the muscles and killing pain and all that stuff. Good God almighty, the flies. All right. But I started drinking these, and I think I went through 5 of them. And then all of a sudden I got sleepy. I said, oh, well, I'm going to lay down for a minute. And I woke up at about 7 o'clock. Woke up 7. I was like, oh my gosh. How did I get in bed? Oh, 9.5% alcohol, India Pale Ale. That's how I got in bed. So I'm looking around. I was like, okay, where's my glasses? I didn't have my glasses on. And they weren't. Okay, so you guys are really fuzzy right now. They weren't on the nightstand where I put them whenever I'm going to bed deliberately. Since apparently I wore them whenever I just laid down to take a nap. And so I laid down to take a nap, and sometime during the process of taking the nap, these came off. Well, there's a problem, because once these come off, I can't see. And so I had to fumble around looking for them for about half an hour, between 7 and 7:30. Mary calls me at 7:30 while I'm fumbling around looking for my glasses and goes, hey, are you having the live stream tonight? Meanwhile, my alarm on my phone is going off. I'm like, yeah, hang on. Yeah. I'm looking for my glasses because I was day drinking and I passed out. Now I've got a live stream in about an hour and a half. That gives me enough time to get everything together. Um, it also turns out there was just enough time for me to run out and hey, I know what I can do. Just enough time for me to run out and take that extra gallon or so of honey water that I cooked up and now cooled to the point where I can add it in without it being a problem. Close that. There we go. So let's find the video file. I think it's this one here.
I don't know what that is that you just said, but I'm sure it's, like I said, profound and interesting.
So I'm on the phone with Mary right here.
Huh? No, I don't know where I left them. I went to sleep. I woke up. I was like, oh, I can't see. I'm blind.
All right. So we had just enough light here for us to capture this moment, which will be happening anytime. Here it goes. Wait, did you see it? All right, so that little float there at the top of the airlock is supposed to. Oh, that's all we got. That's disturbing. So we added just a little bit of honey water to the batch of brew. There we go. That's a better image. That's what it's supposed to look like. Hang on. Here it goes. 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 There it is. All right. So that's what's going on there. After we transferred the honey water in, so after we transferred the cider out of the old bottle or out of the old carboy into the new carboy, we replaced the difference of liquid that we lost with some fresh water that I'd added honey to, boiled it to sterilize it, and then let it cool down to the point where you can actually add it in without damaging anything. And so the fermentation process is still going. It's not as quick as it was at the beginning, but it's still going. We'll let it run for another 2 weeks like that, and then we'll pull it out one more time and add a little bit more sugar to it, and then do the bottling. And of course, like I said, we're going to have to do a bottling video too. I think I'm going to add bottle washing to the upcoming video. Biochar, what? I need to make some. That's what I don't know. Well, I mean, she's got 100 acres. But yeah, I'm kind of curious what she's going to use the bulldozer for. So Vicky got the Meta Creature Broad Force. Those are the good ones. Those are pretty good. They also make a solid metal cider press. Nice. I didn't even know they made a cider press. Mary says her favorite person is not me. I know who you're talking about. That's Maggie. She does kick butt. Yeah, that is that right there. That's absolutely true. That right there. Jason is so blind, he needs his glasses to find his glasses. Very, very true. I was fumbling, and I had to search with my hands. Like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where'd it go? I've got a pair of I have a pair of prescription sunglasses, but I forgot where I left them, and so I couldn't even find those. I, if I'm in dire straits, I could take my prescription sunglasses and put them on, and I look like John Lennon, right? With the sunglasses on, like, oh, hi, there they are, over there. I couldn't find them. It took me like 15 or 20 minutes of just fumbling around with my fingers to find the damn things. That takes money, and we spent all of ours on the feed pelletizer. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. No, the feed pelletizer was only like maybe $1,200 with another $300 for shipping. It's not a meat grinder. It's it's a piece of industrial farm equipment, and we spent way too much money on it. But the bright side is now that we've got it, we can take our grass and turn our grass into animal feed. And if we don't have enough grass, then we can always go and offer to cut other people's grass for them, as long as we can keep the clippings. I like this idea right there. Prescription windscreen for the truck. I like it. Ooh, we have a visiting kitty. Let me see kitty. Hi. Hi. Everybody say hi. This is one of the refugees that we're currently harboring. Oh, wow, you are just a purr factory, aren't you? Hi. How you doing? Now, Suzu, the regular resident cat, is down here at my knees at the moment, and she's looking with like this. She's not happy. She is not happy at all that this little guy is getting all this attention. He's so cute. Look, right there. There's the camera. Right up there. Look, it's a camera. No, right there, silly. Right there. Yeah. Ah. All right, cuteness time's over. Here you go.
I give Mary one to some cheesecake.
He's so soft. And this one here does not want me to pick her up. Otherwise, I'd pick her up and show her to you. Yeah. All right. But she's behaving herself for the most part. Heterodox says, Verge Permaculture Design Conference this weekend. Some of the brightest minds will be speaking. That's cool. I've if you have not seen, okay, I'm going to do a quick shout out for Verge Permaculture. I know I ordinarily wouldn't do this. They're not one of my featured channels, but they have a very, very cool video that if you haven't seen it, it's called, I think, In Search of Bill Mollison, where they go out to the desert. And back during the, I think it was the 40s or 50s, during the 40s or 50s, whenever the WPA programs were going. Although I don't at all advocate that anyone support stealing other people's money in order to do bullshit projects. Pardon my French. But during the WPA projects, some of that money was spent on going and making berms in the desert. $40 or $50 years later, you can come back and see what the result of it was. And the result of it was in those places where they went out into the desert. This is in Arizona. Whenever it would rain, the water, instead of just running off and going down into the arroyos and disappearing, would collect and gather in these spots where these berms were made. And since the water was able to collect and sit on the soil in those spots, life was able to move in, and there's small oases there now where those berms were built. Really cool. And Verge Permaculture went out there and toured them and had to look to see. Seasonally, they're wet, and they went there during the dry season. But even during the dry season, there was still plenty of life there in those locations. It's a pretty cool video. Anyway, worth having a look at. Think Mr. Magoo looked farsighted? I can identify with those cartoons now. When I was a kid, they were like, yeah, that's stupid. Now it's like, yeah, that's kind of accurate. Yep, carboy and airlock. That's how we make cider. Granny says she's lost a lot more sight since she had her stroke. Oh, if that's all you lost, then you're doing good, I guess. Oh my gosh, these flies! They're just crowding around now. Oh, Maggie's your second favorite person. Okay. Oh. Biggie saying, take my glasses off and hold reading materials within 4 inches of my nose to read it almost 7 notes. See here. That's about 4.5 inches. Yeah, that would work pretty well. Do what? 22 kittens next door. That's too many kittens. Breeds them to get run over. Man. I recall when I was about maybe 7 years old, my brother had a Siamese kitten. Called him Sigmund. Siamese kitten. Little bitty thing. Well, he's a little bit more than little bitty. And that cat was just the friendliest little kitten. And like all the animals, he lived outside. And one day, while we're waiting for the school bus to show up, he goes and he's playing around in the road. And this being in the middle of the sticks. Somebody was driving around. They got lost, didn't know where they were going. And they came down the road, flying down the road about 80 miles an hour. Posted 45 miles. And hit him. Never forget the sound that he made. There's a thump, thump. Front tires and back tires. Killed him right there on the side of the road. I was so mad. There's no reason for them to run over that cat like that. If they've been driving at a reasonable rate of speed, he could have gotten out of the road. But 22 kittens is a little bit much. Heterodox is saying it's almost been a desert here this summer. 3.7 inches over 6. Yeah, that's not a whole lot of rain. We haven't had much rain here in Oklahoma either. I mean, I was looking at the forecast. We have no rain in the forecast for the next 10 days. And I can't really, properly speaking, recall the last time it rained. The things that I'm trying to grow at the moment, I have to go out there and water. So we have a second crop of corn going, and I have to water that. I'm watering it with used duck water, so it's growing really well. We'll try to get that into a video for you here pretty soon. But it's the corn's in tassel. The new cobs are coming on. We've got corn silks on the new cobs. The ducks are taking care of the grasshopper problem, so we're actually going to get some corn from the second crop. Hopefully, I mean, as long as it doesn't freeze on us sometime in the near future, which could happen next week. You never know. It's Oklahoma. Alan says, I gave Verge grief for featuring a monster compost turner, but not showing. I don't know. Maybe they got it, tried it, didn't like it, and decided just not to talk about it anymore. Dallas Homestead's in the house. Hi. Vicky's saying my watercress is still Leslie green. Our watercress died. We had some watercress in the bird bath, which is probably not the best place to keep watercress, but it finally died because it got too hot. We had to go out there and put water in it every day to keep it hydrated. And one day I skipped, and the next day it was brown, and that was it. That's all she wrote. I had another batch of the same watercress in the aquaponics experiment. I've got okay. I'm running an aquaponics experiment in the backyard before I exert all the effort and energy of digging a pond and stocking a pond and doing all that stuff. I kind of wanted to see what I can get away with, and so I got a 27-gallon tough tote. So it's about yay wide. Those big black totes that we were using in the cider press video. I have one of those filled most of the way up with water. So it's maybe about 20 gallons of water, probably about 5 gallons on the top that isn't full. Drilled a hole in the side of it and put a little filter sponge in there so that whenever it rains, it'll flow out through there instead of over the top, so that we don't lose any fish or plants or other stuff that might be in there. And I've got that filled up with water that we hand pumped out of the well, just to see if the well water would work. It does. Hello there, Hugo Homestead. We put that in the tub. I put lava rocks at the bottom. I imported a little sample of water from one of the ponds up there on Turkey Mountain, the wilderness area that we sometimes go to, and occasionally you'll see in videos. Put that in there because I knew it had all the necessary bacteria to support a population of fish in an enclosed area without water flowing through it. So like, okay, so if we got the bacteria, if we've got the aquatic plants and everything else that's needed for life to be in there, hopefully this will create a system that we can keep fish in, and everything will be fine. And then we just have to blend it up with other aquatics. So we put guppies in it. So at the moment it's so those lava rocks, the water from a wild pond up in the hills, and guppies. We put some azolla in there, which is a free-floating aquatic plant that manufactures its own nitrogen, which is kind of cool, but also helps keep the water clear by soaking up the fish waste. And there's I cannot remember what the name of the aquatic plant is. There's another aquatic fern that free-floating aquatic fern that's in there. And of course, water chestnuts. The crop here, of course, is water chestnuts. That's what we're growing. Growing them because they're high in potassium and good for the kind of cooking that we like to do. But eventually, we want to add some other things in there, like some freshwater shrimp and other things. But I wanted to make sure that I had a functioning aquatic ecosystem that can operate with no inputs from the outside. So although I did run an aerator in there for a while, eventually we let the water levels drop. The pump motor burned out. It was like, okay, there's only about this much water left in that tub. What's going to survive? And whatever survives, that's what I want to transfer to the big pond whenever it's done. Because if I can stress the heck out of it and it still keeps going, then that's what I want. That's what I want to have for main production. Somebody might ask, well, Jason, how come you plant all this stuff and then you just neglect it and let it go and half of it dies? Like, the half that lives, I take and I propagate, and I have more of that because that's what I want. I want stuff that if I neglect it, if I'm not here, if I just go away for a few hundred years, it will still be here. So that's the idea. So I'll get stuff, establish it, neglect it, and then take the stuff that survived and propagate more of that. Let me see. Somebody was asking something about the guppies. I'll get to that in a second. That's the commercial compost company. Just showed us. I don't know. Where they have like the big heaps in a windrow and it's just sitting there. Okay, yeah, okay. So Vicky was asking how well the guppies are controlling mosquito larvae. No mosquitoes in that little tub at all. None. So the guppies are doing a great job. And like I said, the water level dropped down to like 2 or 3 inches, so they were down to maybe 5 gallons of water out of a 20-gallon tank. They were down to 5, no aeration, nothing, and they still survived in there. So that's. I think those guppies are going to do really good when I put them into a regular pond where they have plenty of water and a good situation. And yeah, I mean, this is exactly the idea, Vicky. Sound like David the Kid. I'm going to try to get as much stuff as I can, plant a whole bunch of different things, and then neglect the hell out of it. And then whatever survives. And this is also the Mark Shepard method, is sheer utter neglect, or sheer total utter neglect. Get a whole bunch of stuff, plant a whole bunch of stuff, and then don't do anything with it. Let it see, let nature sort it out. Whatever's going to live, that's what you want to propagate. If it doesn't make it, you don't want it. Yeah, lots of I can show you a whole bunch of failures. If you want to see a whole bunch of things that didn't make it, I can show you. I can show you all the stuff that didn't make it. So I kind of cherry pick and show you the successes, but what I don't often talk about is about half the stuff that I plant doesn't make it. Probably about half, maybe more. And this is because I'm a horrible gardener. I am a horrible gardener. But I try to find things that a horrible gardener can grow, and they still grow despite the fact that you're a horrible gardener. Yep, stun, sheer, total, utter neglect. That's the method. And Mark put it really well. He was shooting video in front of just a hedge growing along the side of the road. He said, "Take a look at this hedge. Okay, there's the field over here, and flies, go on, get off the camera lens." There's a field over here, and for the past couple of 100 years, people have been growing crops in the field, and they go out there and they plow nice little rows in the field, and they sow their crops. And they add their additives, they add the fertilizers, they put on the minerals, they do everything else, and they irrigate and they take care of the crops over here, and they do everything in their power to grow food over here. And sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail, but that's modern agriculture. And then over here on this side of the road, they haven't been planting anything deliberately. This is just the stuff that grows there, and they've done everything in their power to kill it. They've brush hogged it. They've sprayed it with herbicides. They've done everything they possibly can to kill off this growth here on the side of the road. And lo and behold, it's still here after hundreds of years of people trying to kill it, and it's still there. And what's in there? And he looks over the stuff that's in there. There's chinkapin, there's hazelnut, there's mulberry, there's all these other things that, despite everyone's efforts to get rid of them, are still there. So the big question is, how come we're not basing our agriculture efforts on the things that are growing on the edge? Makes sense, right? We spend so much time and effort trying to grow things that want to die, when here beside the road, there's a good, edible, functioning ecosystem stuff that, if you just leave it alone, is fine. So really all we have to do is find the stuff that nature will favor and plant it deliberately. So that's kind of what we do. Judy says, I grew okra for the first time in 50 years of gardening. Made gumbo last night. Nice. I love gumbo. I love okra too. Okra's awesome. I have not, so far, I've not found a variety of okra that will grow itself. I've got some tomatoes that want to grow themselves, as long as I don't pull them up. So far, I haven't found an okra strain that will self-seed, but I'm working on it. This year, I tried out a little midget dwarf variety, and it was okay. I mean, they're cool for small spaces, but they got too tough too quick. I'm going to go back to using the cow horn. Those get nice big long seed pods, and you can still use them. Vicky's saying this is very true. What's tough and resilient in one location can be delicate in another. Right? Yeah. The things that we were able to grow on the farm where I grew up, which is about 10, 15 miles, maybe 20 miles away from here as the crow flies, the stuff that we were able to grow there, I couldn't grow here. It just doesn't want to grow. Maybe something similar, different cultivar, different variety, but it's a different location, so you need different stuff. It's one of the reasons why I said in that video a while back where I was talking about 5 things that you need to know before you start your survival garden is you need to start growing at the place that you're going to be growing, and you need to start before the emergency happens, because once there's an emergency, it's too late to be on the learning curve, and every new location is a new opportunity to learn something. Just because you know how to grow in one spot doesn't mean that you're going to be able to grow the same stuff in a different spot. But Granny says, soil, where Granny's at, her soil is diverse. And yeah, even here at this particular property, the soil we've got on one side of the house is entirely different from the other side. So on the east side of the house, we've got lots of clay and a little bit of gravel. And on the west side of the house, we've got a little bit of that clay and a little bit of the gravel, but mostly sand. So the way this developed, whenever this particular portion of the river bottom was being unregulated, the dams hadn't been built up yet, and it was just meltwater coming down the river from the glaciers up north as those were receding. At some point, a fairly large boulder or rock got deposited probably right under my butt. And I would estimate maybe 10, 15 foot down. A very large obstruction in any case. And that sat there. And then as the ebb and flow occurred during the seasons, we would get deposits of clay and silt, gravel, and other things that would get blocked by that boulder. So this end of it, on this end, we've got all the clay and all the gravel. And then further to the west, where the lighter materials would have accumulated, that's where we get all the lighter sand and silt. And so from the east side of the property to the west side of the property, we have entirely different soil. I mean, entirely different. And then if I go another 15 or 20 feet off of the property on the other side of the road, we're back to sand again. So that's just the topography right here is a little bit different because a small island got built up back during the last period of glaciation, and it's still with us today. And it affects how we can grow and what we can grow and where we can grow things, even on this very small 1/3 of an acre of property. Cows and sheep simply eating grass and providing meat for free. It makes when a climate criminal. I wouldn't pay too much attention to the people that are calling you climate criminals until they start coming after you with weapons, in which case defend yourself. Ooh, I've got some of that actually. Oh, okay. So behind the green screen, my cousin brought me some of that. It's just like a really short but fat seed pod for okra, and he brought me some, and I did not plant it this year. I'll plant it next year. He said he likes it. It grows well for him, but then again, he's out there around Tahlequah, right there next to the Cherokee Nation. It's tasty too. All right, so I'll probably try the Star of David next year. But I'm gonna do 2 okras next year. I'm gonna do the Hayes family long, which is a cow horn that I got from Mark at Arkansas Woodcutter. I'm gonna do that one, and I'll do the Star of David next year, and I'll just do them in 2 different spots. Breeding one's own landrace weeds, selecting for shorter, quicker seeding weeds, herbicide-resistant weeds. I like the fact that you're calling them weeds. Basically, yeah, I grow weeds. I've discovered I'm really good at growing weeds. So I just want to be selective about the weeds that I grow, right? I want to find weeds that produce that are good for eating. I want good edible weeds. and then I'm going to take the good edible weeds and grow a lot of those, and that way, me with my black thumbs can't kill them. Um, yeah, that's a good plan. Jesus, your soil is clay and hard. Yep. So, geez, flies! I'm telling you. The nice thing about clay is it's full of minerals, and it's a great base to build soil from. Of course, the downside of clay is it's not very permeable. You got to do a lot of work with it. That's the way we've always done it. Yeah. The funny thing is, modern agriculture is fairly recent. We've only been doing this for the past, say, 3,000 or 4,000 years, maybe 5,000 total, 6,000 at the very edge of believability. Question is, well, how did people get by before then? So this is interesting. Out there in Turkey, there's a place called Göbekli Tepe. You may have heard of it. It's an archaeological site where there's some stonework, very, very large stone monoliths. They're not highly sophisticated, but they're well placed, very well organized, not really well dressed. The carving of the stones is not incredibly sophisticated, but the position is very good, and they're aligned with the stars appropriately for the time that they were placed, approximately. But somewhere around 12,000 years ago, 10 to 12,000 years ago, they came along and deliberately buried the site for some reason. Now, the part that they've excavated is one or two stone circles, but there's several more of them. It indicates that maybe they had built quite a few, and then the ones closer to the top of the hill were maybe the latest ones, or maybe not. That those might have been earlier. Who knows? They haven't excavated all of it yet. They've excavated maybe at 1% of the entire thing, and they're looking at it. They came along, and this was over 10,000 years ago. They erected these stone circles. We know that it was at least 10,000 years ago because we can date the fill material that was put in there. So we can carbon date the fill material and go, well, the fill material was put here 10 plus thousand years ago, plus or minus a few hundred years. When they were actually built, we don't know, but we know when they were buried. They were buried at that time. Now, the archaeologists, whenever they're covering this, will say that this was a hunter-gatherer civilization. Hunter-gatherer civilization. Hunter-gatherers are people that go and they hunt wild animals for food, and they gather or forage wild plant matter for food. This is how they survive. The question is, how do you build a megalithic structure taking the work and labor of thousands of people with a hunter-gatherer civilization if you do not have formal agriculture? And I would suggest that they're not a hunter-gatherer civilization. They're no more a hunter-gatherer civilization than the natives of North America were hunter-gatherers whenever the Europeans arrived here just a few hundred years ago. Now, they may have forgotten their origins by the time the Europeans arrived, but they weren't hunter-gatherers. They were a different type of civilization. And of course, we're talking about agroforestry. Right. Instead of growing annual crops, they had permanent crops, trees like this pecan that's in the picture behind me. If you've got a large number of this kind of tree or other things that are perennials that you can go and you can gather food from on a regular basis, yeah, you would look like a hunter-gatherer civilization. You're hunting to keep your pest pressure down. You got to kill those deer, otherwise they eat everything. And you're gathering the crops that are produced by your perennials. But at some point in the past, somebody had to go and plant all of those. And you can just look at the natural distribution of certain tree species and go, hey, look, these things don't spread around at the rate that we find them if we just let nature do it. If you just let nature do it, you've got all kinds of stuff that may not necessarily produce good food for you. You can go look through the Ozarks, where Vicky's at. There's still some good stuff, but not at the rate deliberately planted forest garden, right? Um, and the same thing happened in Missouri as well. More so in Missouri, they came back and they planted a lot of eastern red cedar in that area as ground cover. You wouldn't ordinarily have this kind of distribution of eastern red cedar. It's not that successful a species on its own, but they planted that to stop uh, soil erosion. They didn't replant all the other associated species that are supposed to be in the forest. So many of these forests that we see going across the United States are not original at all. They're just the things that got planted or the things that got left behind whenever logging companies came through and they clear cut everything. Um, but if you have this sort of a civilization that's relying upon perennials instead of annuals, you could have several thousand people living in that area and working on a project. And since they're busy working on that project and not busy tilling and sowing annual crops, you can support a larger population that can do a lot of work like that. So once upon a time, that was humanity. We were not busy scratching at the ground, plowing and growing annual crops, trying to survive. We had our food sources, and we were able to do great things, build monolithic sites, great civilizations, which are now lost and forgotten. That we can only speculate as to the nature of them, other than to say, well, they must have been hunter-gatherers, but how they were able to build this, we just don't know. That's the way we've always done it. Judy's having groundhog problems. Any suggestions? I wish I had some. I've struggled with groundhogs and struggled. Poison gas. Do you have any dynamite? Traps. Motion sensing lights and anything that can make noise all the time might be a good idea. If the area that the groundhogs want to live in is noisy and disturbing, they're not going to want to live there. Nothing else want to live there either. But it might be necessary to just maybe here's an idea. Okay, take a radio, a battery-powered radio, tune it to an AM station, maybe one of those talk radio stations, so you have stuff going all the time. Put it in a coffee can so it doesn't get wet. Crank up the volume and just put that out around, maybe more than one of them, all around the area. So there's always the sound of people talking. That might help discourage the groundhogs because they want to be left alone. They don't want a lot of people. They want a lot of disturbance. They don't want a lot of noise. So if you've got something that's going to make noise, that might help. Find their burrows. Find their burrows. Mix up some ammonia and toilet bowl cleaner and put it into a tennis ball. Put the hole in a tennis ball with the toilet bowl cleaner in there. Put a little ammonia in there, and then pitch it down the hole. That's mean and nasty, but they'll get out of the hole quick enough, or they won't make it out of the hole. One of the two. But disturbance. That seems to help. Dogs are good for groundhogs. Of the local groundhogs, I've only seen 2 of them get killed by anything. One of them, okay, 3 of them got killed by something. Only 2 of them got killed that I actually saw it, and that was the neighbor's dog. Managed to kill off 2 of them. They crawled over the fence, got into his yard, the dog got him. That was after I created enough disturbance that they left my yard and they decided to go over to his. That's when the dog got him. So if you want to get rid of them permanently, have a dog around. And then one of them got killed by something else. I'm suspecting maybe an eagle. Got partially eaten, and then they got dropped. So we found part of a groundhog. But it's kind of hard to deliberately attract eagles to hunt your property, and you might not want to anyway, especially if you have small children. Oh man, sorry about that, Alan. And the sad thing is, I do videos that are kind of like that sometimes, where I'll show something and go, okay, here's the big thing, here it is, I'm introducing it, and then I might not get around to do anything else with it in the near future, or if it turns out to be, something that wasn't all that exciting, or I'm just busy or whatever, I may never follow up on it. It's like, here's the thing, and that's the video. Hopefully, I won't attack people over it, but I can kind of commiserate with making the video and then not doing anything, because that method of making compost is just dull and boring, where you just keep everything up and let it sit there. It's like, yeah, okay. Slow, cold compost. There's no action. And I don't know how you make a story out of it. You really can't. Invite the groundhog for dinner as the entree. Now, I imagine groundhog would be pretty good. I mean, they're related to rabbits. They're related to squirrels. They're rodents, right? Squirrel's good. Rabbit's good. I bet groundhog would be good. You just have to catch them before the eagles do. All right. Heterodox got curly dock, goldenrod, dandelions, monster chicory, and comfrey. All of that's good stuff. I mean, we eat curly dock. In the spring, we eat curly dock. I go and harvest it, chop it up, a little bit of bacon fat in the skillet. Oh man, it's good. It's a little tart because of the oxalic acid that's got. So you can eat it fresh and green in a salad, but it is tart. You don't want to eat too much of it. Whenever you cook it, it loses the oxalic acid, and it's just a really good mineral-rich green. Not a whole lot of protein, but lots of minerals. Of course, dandelion is good. Chicory is good. If you take chicory and you sprout it and keep it covered, so it's just the early sprouts that are coming up in the dark, it stays white and it never gets the bitterness. And they call it endive, right? That's what the endive vegetable is. It's chicory that's being grown without sunlight. So no sunlight, no chlorophyll, and no bitterness. The greener it gets, the more bitter it gets. But that's a really good vegetable. Tasty too. I'm sorry, Jay. I'm laughing. I've done the same thing. I've like maybe 2 or 3 videos about the groundhogs. Dang it, the groundhogs! Dang it, the groundhogs! And they have been resistant to just about everything. Lots of noise. Noise seemed to help, and I took peppermint. I grew peppermint, and I took the peppermint and cut it up, watered it up into balls, and started throwing that down into the burrows. And apparently, they don't like the smell, and they took off and left. And it was after I had started shoving peppermint down into the burrow that the groundhog was in, was whenever it got up and left and started investigating the neighbor's yard, and that's whenever the dog ate it. So I guess if I started with a dog, I wouldn't have needed to do anything else. So maybe I don't really like keeping dogs. It's kind of unfair to the dog to keep them in an enclosed environment, but it might be worth inviting a dog to come hang out with you for at least for a while to get rid of the groundhog. Joe says he's got wild amaranth, purslane is good too, and mallow. Oh, if you can get wild mallow, right? I've been trying to grow some around here, and I need to work more on the habitat to get it to grow. And lamb's quarters we have in plenty. We have lots and lots of lamb quarters. Actually, it's in that stage right now where we have the seeds are forming. They're still green and tender, and this is a great time if you're not wanting it to go to seed and spread everywhere. Although that'd be silly. It's already gone to seed and it's already everywhere. But now is a great time to cut it and dry it and use it for animal feed, which that's coming up in a video very shortly, as a matter of fact. I'll be going out and harvesting more lamb's quarter for feed tomorrow. Fly. dandelions. They're everywhere. I mean, there's about 30 or 40 of them right in front of me at the moment. Yeah, purslane is awesome. I was talking about wild lettuce. I've never have developed a taste for wild lettuce. I've tried it. I've tried it as young as I can possibly find it, and it's still just too bitter for me. And dandelions too. I mean, I know they're edible, but they're not my favorite. They're not my favorite wild edible. We get something called hairy bittercress around here, which is a member of the brassica family, and it has the little tiny white, four-pointed, cruciferous flowers. A little bit of a hot flavor to it, like a proper cress should have, and it produces little tiny seed pods with mustard-like seeds in it, and that stuff is pretty darn good. You can't eat it just by itself, right? But as an addition to a salad or as a powder, it was great. You combine that with dock, right? And you've got a pretty good dish. And it grows wild. It's just there. It's worth investigating and seeing what kind of wild weeds grow that are actually edible in your area. You may be surprised. It's quite possible that you can eat enough of the wild weeds growing in your area that you don't really need to actually plant vegetables at all. Judy's talking about that white sap that comes in the wild lettuce. I mean, yeah, you can. You can also, I think there's enough of that same sort of sap that you can find in dandelions too, that you can use it as a latex. It just takes a whole lot to produce latex. They were experimenting with it back in the 1950s, I think it was, as a possibility for producing rubber, and it's just not economically feasible. You could grow enough to make some rubber, but not enough to really make an industry out of it. So far, the rubber tree is the best source of latex. But yeah, it is latex. I've talked about this before. Specifically, is whenever you get around to the areas where you find terra preta or terra preta, the manufactured soil that's in there. There are islands in the Amazon basin, basically areas where there was a civilization there at one time. Somebody had gone in and had been making pottery. They've been doing some agriculture, and they would always bury the refuse, their cooking remains, their pottery, all of that, in large amounts. And over time, that built up the soil and it produced what's called terra preta, the black earth of the Amazon. And those areas were those pockets where the perennials that they had planted, much like we were talking about earlier, an early civilization didn't plant annuals to live on. They planted perennials. And it wasn't a hunter-gatherer civilization. It was an agrarian civilization that lived off of those perennials. And they had that in the Amazon. And it just sort of spread from there. But even in the modern era, the distribution of plants that are food plants that are there in the Amazon really do strongly suggest that that's how it started. It wasn't just a wild, naturally distributed forest. It was a deliberately planted forest, and now it's gone wild. But yeah. And that's it. Yeah. The agrarian civilization the natives here in North America had was considered to be wild by the Europeans. They saw they came here and they said, well, these guys are just running around. They're hunting wild animals. They're harvesting nuts and berries from the trees. this is a hunter-gatherer civilization. But if you look at an area that's been clear-cut, that nature has come in and nature is planting. But whatever nature wants to plant, that's what's going to grow there, right? Wild, natural distribution. So you wind up with a lot of stuff that grows. And a lot of stuff that grows really well. But not necessarily a lot of stuff that grows really well that's edible for humans. And so we find out really quickly. Go out and try to go into an area that's like this and forage for your food. If you're young and energetic and in good physical shape, you can run around the Ozarks and you can gather enough food to feed yourself. And you might be able to feed one or two other people. If you're really energetic and you're young and you're in good shape. But if you're trying to support a tribe, a large number of people, by hunting and gathering in these areas, you're not going to be successful because there's not enough food there. So what were the natives doing that was different? Well, what they were doing that was different was they were hunting and gathering in an area that had been deliberately managed to have edible species in it. And that's not a hunter-gatherer civilization. That's an agrarian civilization. All right. But yeah, the Europeans were used to plowing and everything. They'd already been indoctrinated in that from a few thousand years previous. So the idea that you could just have pecan trees growing and then once a year you go and gather pecans, and that's, one of these pecan trees, like this one in the picture behind me, can produce enough protein and fat for 2 or 3 people when it's mature, all by itself. That one tree, all by itself, enough protein for 2 or 3 people just from the nuts that drop from it. But no, I mean, us Euro-derived folks are conditioned to work too hard for a living. They're saying perennials, coppice agroforestry, and rotational grazing. Yep. And there are videos of making extract from Wild West. I've never tried it myself, so I can't tell you whether it works or not. I've seen plenty of videos, but I have no practical experience. I do grow poppies, though. Not saying I do anything with them. I'm just saying I do grow poppies. We'll leave it at that. Judy says she has tons of jewelweed and lady's thumb. I think you can also eat jewelweed. I'm not sure. Just about everybody has something edible growing in their yard, other than grass. Grass is not very edible unless you feed it to an animal. That's a good observation. The Estimina triloba, the pawpaw, may have been spread by humans. Well, let's examine that, right? So they get pollinated by flies. Speaking of, I could probably get away with growing pawpaws in the local environment, since the flies really like the duck poo. And whenever Mary leaves the back door open, they really like the inside of the house and my plate full of French fries. They're pollinated by flies. The seeds develop inside those fruits. The fruits are not incredibly they're not incredibly storable, so they disintegrate rapidly. They disintegrate rapidly, which means that they're not going to be able to be distributed very far from where they grew. So you've got a pawpaw tree. It makes a fruit. Fruit drops from the tree, and within a short amount of time, very short, it's no longer edible. So the idea that something would come along, harvest it, and keep it, and store it for later doesn't really pan out. No animal's going to do that. It decays too rapidly. So the distribution of seed from the tree is not going to be very far at all. So how do you get this wide distribution of pawpaw? Unless there's some animal that sees the value of the pawpaw as a food species and goes, I want more of those, and deliberately takes those and carries them over mountains. What species might that be? Any guesses? I'm thinking the two-legged variety. I mean, humans. Have the same role in the ecosystem as squirrels do. We like to go and grab those food items that we like and propagate them, and we spread them. Yeah, see, that's the thing. But I know it's considered a painkiller. I've never tried it as a painkiller, so I can't tell you that it is or isn't. So Joe is saying that it's been a dry year down where that's unfortunate. I know it's been cooler down where you are than it has been up here, which is funny because you guys are in the tropics, but very little rain. So Oklahoma's climate is kind of tropical. It's semi-tropical. We have a rainy season and a dry season. It's just whenever it's rainy, it has a tendency to be cool as well. So we have cool weather and rain in the spring, cool weather and rain in the fall. And then it's dry in the summer and dry in the winter. So in the summer, we have dry and hot. In the winter, we have dry and cold. So there's one season. there's one season which lasts for about 30 days that things grow really well, spring. And then we've got fall if we're lucky and it doesn't hard freeze, then we can grow stuff in the fall. It's weird. As a result, we're better off growing perennials, very, very hardy perennials like pecan trees. Grow really well here. And apparently corn. Well, if you grow the right kind of corn. I finally found the right kind of corn to grow. Kind of happy about that. Our second crop of corn is it's coming along very nicely now. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with this method. I've tried it. I think peppermint works better than pea. So, yes, this is a very real thing. Groundhog dug under the concrete slab, way under the house. We've got the carport over there. Over there, yeah, that way. The carport has got tunnels underneath it, and there's like a sill foundation. So they set up forms like this, about this wide, and they poured in those forms. That's all the foundation there is, and then they built on top of the concrete sills. Those go down about 3 foot, and then the groundhogs dug underneath that. Fortunately, they haven't dug to the point where everything's collapsed, but any more extensive digging, and we're going to have stuff starting to just cave in from groundhog activity. It's not good. I've tried poison bait and it didn't work. Powdered sugar and saltpeter and make a smoke bomb. Hey, making smoke bombs is fun. You don't need any other reason to make a smoke bomb. I don't know if ferrets could take on these groundhogs. They might be able to take on gophers, but groundhogs get big. Dash hens, maybe. Well, dogs. Get a dog to handle groundhog. So far, the best solution that I've run across is have a dog. Seems to be the best solution so far. Ken says groundhogs are not bad, especially if eating a lot of clover. I haven't had the opportunity to try eating a groundhog, but if I catch one, I bet I will. See, that's the thing. You could either have limbs fly. You could either have a dog come out that's good at hunting them, or you could have a dog just in the area. So, go to the shelters, rescue a pup, bring them home, Give them a long chain and a stake in a house and put it right next to the groundhog burrow. So you have them on that long chain so that they have plenty of room to run around and do their thing, but they can't go out and wreak havoc on the rest of the yard. And then if you need to, you can just move them around to different spots. And then once the groundhogs are gone, butcher the dog and eat it humanely. I would suggest just let it go in the wild, but that's considered to be inappropriate as well. There's no appropriate way to handle a dog once you're done with it, right? Heterodox says 4 Russian olive trees. Ellie Agnes, which one is the Russian olive? Diversifolia? Ellie Agnes, Angustifolia. Or is that silverthorn? It flies. Only one that has sparse fruit this year is most likely, yeah, not enough water. Typically, that's either not enough water or not enough fertility, and not enough water is more likely the culprit. Because, of course, as we know, all members of the Elaeagnus genus produce their own nitrogen. So there shouldn't be an issue with fertility, unless, of course, you don't have enough water. So, yeah, dryness. I'm going to say dryness. This was the first year that we had fruit off of our gumi, which is an Elaeagnus multiflora, which we have out front. Very, very happy with that. If you guys have not tried Elaeagnus, it's a wonderful little ornamental shrub that you can grow. Pretty yellow flowers early on in the spring, and little tiny. They're like maybe 5 millimeter, 6 millimeter fruits, about the size, that come on. Bright red, silver flecks on them, and they taste a bit like cherries, like tart cherry. Very good. I like them, and wish I had more. So we're going to propagate more when we can. Of course, the Russian olives and silverthorns have a tendency to be invasive because they propagate themselves excessively. So if you don't want that, try Elaeagnus multiflora or gumi, and then you just only have them where you want them. Groundhog didn't like the lavender. That's nice to know. Lavender is good for dealing with mosquitoes as well. It blocks the scent receptors. Makes it hard for them to find you. I've seen the same videos, Biggie. People that hire out dogs like beagles and stuff like that go and deal with rats in fields and stuff like that. There's none of them near us, which is unfortunate. And ferrets, ferrets could probably get down to the burrows. About the only way you're going to find a ferret is if somebody's raising it. Biggie says, if it was correct, there's experience of making rubber from milkweed. Yeah, there were a variety of different plant species were tested that grow here in the temperate zone for making rubber, and theoretically you could, but in practice it's not practical. Granny Lena went Caddyshack on the ground. You can't do it under your house. They started over here. They started underneath the back porch. There was one that started burrowing under there. It's like nope, no, don't. But we've run them off for now. There's no guarantees though. They may be back. There's a spot over there on the other side of the railroad tracks where they're living wild, and they may come back from there again. The neighbor's been running his dog through there on a regular basis in the hopes that he can catch them because Dudley Do-Right, the neighbor's dog, really likes hunting groundhogs. That is quite possibly a very true statement. So, to what Heterodox is saying and Vicky is saying there, I mean, there was an entire culture that developed in Mesopotamia following the fall of the Sumerian civilization. Not that I know anything about that. Sometime during the Sumerian civilization, somebody introduced agriculture, and it took off, became popular. It wasn't the way people used to do things, but it was the new thing. Um, Growing annual grains was a way that you could grow a crop, and you could store the crop, and you could create specialized uh, castes in society that would do the growing of food. This is really where agriculture got started, and it spread from there. It spread from ancient Mesopotamia to my ancestor Avram, who was from that empire. He lived in the city of Ur in Chaldea, following the fall of Samaria. From there, he traveled all across the ancient world, at least in the Near East, and eventually settled in the land of Canaan. Uh, Later would become known as Israel and is now called Palestine by the Romans. But that entire concept was a novel concept at the time, and it was very popular. It was very successful. It worked, and it works to a point. But you can't support a global population of 20 or 30 billion people that way. So it's got its time and its place and its purposes, but its time and its place is it's done. We need to move on to something different. And then Christianity came later. Heterodox is saying it's angustifolia. Okay, so the autumn olive is Elaeagnus angustifolia. I thought that was what. Yeah, I couldn't remember whether it was angustifolia. And there's another one. Alan's saying, rude to ask, why are there so many flies? There are so many flies because Mary keeps on leaving her back door open. She lets the dog out and she leaves the back door open. I keep on telling her not to do it because unless you're going to be keeping an eye out for the random hobo with a straight razor, don't leave the back door open. But the other thing is the flies come in. Then she complains about the flies. No, I'm dealing with the flies. We have so many flies in the area because we've got ducks, and duck poo draws flies, and that's it. That's the reason. Yeah, dog that used to hunt armadillos, huh? Fortunately, we don't have many armadillos here. I've caught one in a live trap, and I took it up to the hills and let it go. Yeah, flies breed faster than. I mean, the ducks will eat them, but they breed faster than the ducks can eat them. And they're not really great at catching flies either. Yeah, they breed in the duck do, and the ducks do a lot. Yeah, they're ducks poo a lot. Um, So occasionally it shows up in videos. And whenever I do, I usually cut it to just a really short montage where I show here I am, I'm emptying out the duck water into a bucket. I'm dumping the duck water bucket on a plant to fertilize it. And I make it really, really short. This is actually about half an hour every day of running around, emptying out duck water, cleaning out the containers. And I've got 3 of them going at any given time. And they have to be changed out every day. I mean, if you let them go for 2 days, they get so nasty. But they're pretty nasty after 1 day of use. The ducks will go into the water, and as soon as they get into the water, that's when they do their business. And so 12 ducks, 3 tubs. By the end of the day, every tub has got duck poo in it, like lots of duck poo. And mud. Apparently, they like to go and splash water out of the tub, make mud, and then dig around in the mud with their bills. This is probably how they get the grit for their crops so that they can eat properly. But then they will go and they'll get that in there as well. So in between duck poo and mud and everything else, after 1 day, 10 gallons of water becomes 7 gallons because you splash the rest of it out. And that 7 gallons is now full of duck manure. But it makes really good fertilizer. So I'm not complaining. I mean, I empty them out. I get fertilizer. I fertilize something. I water something. And then I refill it. It's a daily chore whenever you get ducks. And then the duck poop attracts flies. Like lots of flies. And then somebody has to go and leave the back door open so the flies come into the house. Not going to mention any names, but Mary. And Vicky said, I have heard that armadillos carry leprosy and are unfit to eat or touch. I've heard the same thing. So the last time I caught an armadillo, it was in a live trap, and I was trying to capture a groundhog, and I got an armadillo instead. So that same live trap I caught a raccoon, I caught an armadillo. What else did I capture in it? I can't remember what else. I caught something else in it. I never caught a groundhog in it. I was setting it out right next to the burrow, and I put, here's some yummy stuff that you can eat in here. I never caught the dang groundhog in the live trap. Caught everything else but yeah, I've heard the same story. Armadillos carry leprosy. I don't know, Brennan, you heard that story?
It's not leprosy, it's Hansen's disease.
It's called what?
They don't carry leprosy, they carry, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, they carry Hansen's disease.
Hansen's disease.
But it's only a very small percentage of them, and then the likelihood that you get it is even smaller than that.
Okay, so Hansen's disease is like leprosy?
Kind of.
All right. So anyway, Brendan over here is off screen right now, is from Texas, so he should know. He says, according to the Texas Wildlife Department, it's not leprosy that the armadillos carry. It's something called Hansen's disease.
Small percentage of the
And
population.
it's a small percentage of the population.
And
You're probably not likely to catch it, but
unless you skin your hand and then grab the armadillo, you're not very likely to get it.
all the same, I don't think you'd probably want to be butchering and eating armadillos.
No, they do feel weird if you touch them.
Well, there we go.
Like if you felt like a bull snake before, like the belly of a bull snake, it feels kind of like that, but all over.
All right. Let's see.
Any of them raised in captivity or eating a captive diet will not have the bacteria.
All right. So Hansen's disease is caused by a bacteria, and if you're raising armadillos in a captive environment, they won't have it. Although why anybody would keep pet armadillos, I don't know.
That's the only communicable thing they have. They do have a form of leprosy, but it's an animal-specific form.
All right.
And it's in their poop. So don't eat their poop.
Don't. Okay, good. Safety tip: do not eat or play with armadillo poo. Okay, got it. Veteran Ironwood in the house. You're late. Oh my goodness. Okay, Joe's got to chime in on the armadillo thing. I wonder how they prepare armadillo. The people who Acapulco country, armadillo, venison, possum, wild rabbit, and squirrel in the roadside food stalls. If it walks, swims, flies, or crawls, it's food. Hmm. Have you ever been down to Chihuahua? You ever wonder why you don't see dogs there? I know. People joke about this, but um, for indigenous American population, dog is food. Always has been. So you go to a backcountry roadside taco stand, and you notice that there's dog hides being tanned on the fence. The meat that's being served in those tacos, yeah, it may be federal. Doesn't matter. It still tastes good. Uh, when I was a kid, I was told, dig deep, get pup.
Also, Jason, I looked it up. Armadillo is a part of the diet in parts of Mexico and Central America.
That's what Joe was saying.
It's basically an armored pig. You just
Yeah.
treat it like armored pig.
That's what Joe was saying. Out there in the countryside around Acapulco, it does show up on the menu.
Apparently, you just cook it like pork.
Cook it like pork, slow roast it. Just make sure it's all the way cooked.
Just make sure it's cooked. 140 degrees, 5 minutes, or 165 at all.
Yep. What was it about raccoons with hands? I know possums. You ever see a possum's hands? They're a little bit disturbing. If you saw, okay, imagine it's late at night, right? It's late at night, and for some reason you've got the window open because it's hot out. It's the windows up, and you hear a noise coming from outside. You look over there at the window, and you see two little hands go. I mean, you might be freaking out and running as fast as you can. It's like, yeah, and then a possum pokes his head up over there. But they look like human hands. Possums hands do. It's really weird. Joe's saying raccoons with hands. Glad the kitties don't have hands. Interesting enough. Pardon me, kitty. Can I borrow you for a moment? You're not going to freak out if I pick you up, are you? Yeah, you are. Okay. I'm going to pick you up anyway. I'm going to pick you up anyway. Hi. Yeah, see. Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. All right. So I want people to see your paws. Can you not freak out for just a minute? All right. So cat paw right here. No, let me see your paw. Let me see your paw for a minute. She's not happy with me picking her up. All right. So, you poor thing. All right. Okay. She's not going. Okay. Jeez. Sorry. Yeah. All right. So cat paws, right there in the middle. They've got a pad here, a pad here, a pad here, and a pad here. So, oddly enough, if you were to look at your own hand and just look at the muscle groups that are in your hand, you've got a muscle group here, a muscle group here, a muscle group here, and a muscle group here. Cats have exactly the same thing. They just don't have articulated fingers. But they can grab things with this spot right here in between those pads. And if you're a card cheat or a magician, you can use that same space. Oh, use a bottle cap. If you're a card cheat or a magician, you can use that same space there in between the muscle pads of your hands to grab things. It's called palming. So. But cats have the exact same muscle groups. They can theoretically pick up and manipulate objects with their hands, even though they don't have fingers. Spent many hours as a kid learning how to do this. I can do this with a whole stack of quarters. Yeah, they just don't have this. You ever walk up to the monkey's cage at the zoo and go, look, ha ha, na 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 na. You can do this until they throw poo at you. I'm sorry, kitty. I wanted to show them your hands. Meow. Hey, no bite. She just nibbled. She's in a mood. But she never does really like to get picked up. That cat, she wants attention. She wants attention 24/7. But she does not want you to pick her up. She does not want you to hold her. She cats. Julie's saying Skittles, their kitten held his bottle. It was precious. I used to have one. This was before my daughter was born. I used to have one. We called her Draquine. Called her Draquine de Leonia. That was her name. So she was a little dragon kitty, or dragon lion. This little cat would go to the jar that we kept our loose change in. We kept a large gallon jar with all the pocket change. They come in whenever I have pocket change, as one does, because if you don't do anything with your pocket change, it'll tear a hole in your pockets. And you very rarely ever spend your pocket change. It's just more convenient to hand somebody a fresh bill, and then you get the change. So we take all the change and drop it into a bottle or into a jar, and it'll slit at the top for us to drop the change into. But she would take that jar and put one forearm out like this, and the other forearm like that. So we have this sort of action here. And she would then do this. And usually about 3 times was enough to loosen up the lid. The lid would come off. She'd knock the jar out, pour all the change out onto the floor, drag it out, and then roll around in it, which is the reason why we called her Draquine, the little dragon, because she had her hoard that she would play with. And I don't know why she did that. We didn't teach her to do that. She just did that. And if she could get to the light switches, she would turn the lights off, which is weird. Land piranhas. Oh my gosh. Means oven ready. Oh my gosh. Came back with a cat that somebody dumped in the woods. So that's a fly that keeps on getting in front of the camera there. Yeah, cats are weird. Cats are weird. So dogs have this attitude where I love you, I love you, I love you. It doesn't matter. The first time you ever met them, you're a human. I love you. I haven't even done anything. I love you. Why? I haven't done anything to be worthy of all this affection. I love you. I'm devoted to you. I'll be your friend forever. Cats, on the other hand, is like, so? If a cat likes you, you have to earn a cat liking you, and then it's still not a guarantee. So people that like dogs because dogs are so affectionate and dogs are so loyal. It's like, yeah, but they're bred that way. It doesn't mean anything. Neighbor here's an orange tabby tomcat. When he's in the mood for petting, he'll purr and rub against you. And if you want to leave, he'll snap a paw out fast and probably snag your pant leg or a finger. Like, no, you can't leave. You're mine. Yeah, cats have attitude. Yeah. Dogs are different. But cats, there's just not enough meat on them to really make them worthwhile. Not like chinchillas. I'm saying that jokingly, but actually, we might actually get some. I don't know. We've got the ducks, right? We've got the ducks. Ducks are great for eggs. Good source of protein. Do we need something else? I guess that's a big question. We've got a third of an acre altogether. And I really want to get to the point where, as much as possible, what we eat comes from that third of an acre. Critters like ducks are really useful because they produce eggs. Eggs are good for protein. Um, ducks or chickens, if you're having chickens, are good for pest control, and you get fertilizer from them. So they're multifunctional. You get the eggs. That's a source of protein. They control your pests for you. They can help with weed control. But is there something else you can also do in a small space for food? And I know some people raise rabbits. I just never have really appreciated the taste of rabbit meat. I would like to be able to find something like a pig, but small enough that you can actually raise it and feed it from this size property. You cannot grow enough food on a third of an acre to feed a pig. As good as pigs are at feed conversion, they're not that good. So swine on a third of an acre, no, not really going to work very well. How sheep saying guinea pig or capybara? Maybe capybara. Maybe that's the solution. I need something that produces a lot of fat. Fat. I mean fat, like fat. Of course, that's that's the big problem is whenever you're going to cook something, you need something to cook with, either fat or butter or flies. Fat, butter, oil. I've got an oil press. I can grow peanuts. I can press the peanuts for oil. I am growing peanuts. It's probably not going to be all the oil that we use, right? We're going to need lard. We're going to need a good source of lard. Right now, I buy bacon, and I buy the ends and pieces because it's cheaper to buy the ends and pieces. The little scraps that they have whenever they're done processing the bacon, they've got ends and pieces. And if you shop the right spots or you go to the butcher's, you can get just the ends and pieces. It's a lot less expensive to get the ends and pieces than to buy strips of bacon. And if the only thing you had the bacon for was for that yummy bacon fat that you render out, get ends and pieces. It's cheaper. Just go get 20 or 30 pounds of ends and pieces, put them in your pot, put it on low heat, add a little bit of water so it doesn't stick to the bottom, put a lid on it, and let it go until you've got a pot full of bacon grease and some bacon bits. Run it through your colander, get the bits out, put them back in, cook those down a little bit more, and you can take those and dehydrate them or do whatever else you're going to do with them, and maybe throw them into soup, stews, baked potatoes, or whatever later. And the bacon fat that you're left with, put that in jars. So good survival tip here. Get the ends and pieces, the bacon ends and pieces. Get them from the butcher or whenever you can find them for sale. Get those. Render the fat out of them. Can that. Put those in jars. And then you've always got that bacon fat to cook with. And saves you a ton of money. I can tell you what. Saves you a ton of money and makes the food taste so good. If all you've got is some yard-long beans, that's all you've got today is you got some yard-long beans and you got some curly dock that you chopped, and that's it. Take that, chop it up, throw it in the skillet, crush a little bit of garlic, put it in there with a little bit of bacon fat, cook that down, and you've got dinner, or you've got breakfast, or you've got whatever meal you've got. But it's certainly better than starving. But I would like to be able to find something that I can grow on a small scale that has a good edible fat. And I know duck fat is probably some of the best stuff on earth, but I don't want to sacrifice my ducks. Maybe about 5 years from now, I'll start culling ducks. 4 or 5 years. And I really need to get them on rotation, ideally. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, Duck fat is really good. It's like potato cooked in duck fat is probably one of the tastiest things on planet Earth. And then you say raccoon fat, more gamey than duck. I've heard that beaver tastes really good too. And you're like, beaver? Well, beavers are vegetarians. They eat an all vegetable diet. They live very cleanly. The meat is said to taste an awful lot like beef. So maybe eat beaver. Beaver tail's got a lot of fat in it. Yeah, I don't really like pigeon. I mean, I've eaten it. We've grown them. I've never really developed a big taste for it. I might consider keeping a dovecote just so we could have them because it's better than nothing. But not my favorite. But one of the advantages of pigeons is if you've got a dovecote and you are raising pigeons, for the most part, they go out and they graze. You don't have to bring in a lot of feed to feed them. So if you're raising pigeons, you raise them, you butcher the squab periodically, and that works. But pigeons only lay eggs about once a month, which means they're not really a good source for egg protein if you wanted eggs. You need something else for eggs. Joe says he doesn't know if he could dispatch a guinea pig because they're so stinking cute. They are. What about chinchillas? Huh? They grow those for meat down in Peru, and they got really nice soft fur. I thought about that one. But if I cut my Bermuda grass, that lousy, worthless grass that I'm trying to get rid of, I still keep on having tons of it anyway. If I cut that and turn that into feed pellets, could I feed that to guinea pigs? Could I feed it to chinchillas? But I could. Veteran Ironwood said, there's nothing like a big fall beaver tail over an open fire. I'll tell you what. I haven't had beaver, but I would try it if I could get it. Spring beaver tail is very lean, not worth the harvest. There you go. Bet groundhog fat would be good. Yeah, I'll bet. I mean, consider what they've been eating, right? All of our choice veggies right out of the garden. I mean, the first time I realized I had a beaver problem was right after I had planted our bur oak. I went and I got a bur oak tree, and I planted it on the south end. No, on the west end of what David would call a grocery row garden. I planted it before he did the book, so we're not calling it a grocery row garden. It's just an agroforestry strip, which has a pear tree at the east side, a pecan in the middle, not the pecan that's in this picture behind me, is a different pecan, and I planted a bur oak at the other end. So it's a 60-foot long strip that's 5 foot wide, and we have pears and understory tree on the one side, and the bur oak is actually an understory tree. It's only going to get to be about 60 foot tall if I let it go. If I don't coppice it, if I don't prune it, if I let it get as big as it's going to get, it may get 60, 70 feet tall tops. Compared to the pecan that's going to get 120 foot tall, it's an understory tree. So the two ends, we've got these two understory trees. And then in between those, we've got, in between the pear and the pecan, we've got two hazelnuts. And then in between the pecan and the oak, currently I would say I have a willow and a hazelnut, but both of those died, so I'm going to have to replace those. I've already replaced one of them. I replaced the hazelnut with a Sancho pepper, which is a prickly ash. They're like, why do you have a prickly ash tree? What good is that? It's for seasoning. It produces peppercorns. Not black peppercorns, but little tiny fruits that are flavored somewhat like pepper. And we use it to make a pepper substitute. You guys interested in that? Okay, so yeah, I did. All right, you take a Szechuan pepper. Szechuan, we have Szechuan in the front yard. We got Sancho on the side. Szechuan is the Japanese version of the prickly ash. Sancho is Szechuan is the Chinese. Sorry, Szechuan is the Chinese version of the prickly ash. Sancho is the Japanese version of prickly ash. They crossbreed, so we have fertilized fruit. The flowers get fertilized. They produce fruit. That's peppercorns. That's the reason why we have two different varieties. So you pick those peppercorns, and you can either peel the fruit off of them and leave the seed, or you can leave them all together. If you leave them all together, you're going to wind up with a sort of a lemon pepper sort of flavor to them. The fruit, since it is technically a citrus, has a very citrus flavor to it, but there's not much fruit. It's just a little thin layer of fruit around the seed. The seed is the important part. Crush that up. It has a nice aromatic scent and flavor, much like a pepper, but if you eat it raw, it will numb your tongue, and if you swallow it, you might find it impossible to breathe because it will paralyze everything. So use in small quantities. Grind that up. Add a little bit of mustard seed for pungency, and add a little bit of cayenne pepper to give it heat. So you have the aromatic of a black pepper, you've got the pungency for the mustard, the cayenne for the heat. All three of those spices, whenever you grind them up together, taste exactly like black pepper. Thing is, black pepper only grows from zone 10 and further south into the tropics. If you don't live in the tropics and you want something that tastes like black pepper, that's how you get it. Grow Szechuan and grow a Sancho to cross-pollinate with it, so you get peppercorns. Now you know. Anyway, so right now we got the Sancho pepper tree in that lineup, and there's a willow that's there, but I don't think it made it through the summer because the drought was pretty harsh, and it killed off a lot of things that were freshly planted. So I might have to put something else in there in its place. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a persimmon or a pawpaw or something like that. I'll put something in there. But anyway, so we have understory tree, and then grand total of 30 feet pecan, another 30 feet in an understory tree on the other side. The total spread of the pecan tree, whenever it gets to its full size, is 60 feet from side to side. So right at the edge of the canopy of that pecan tree, you would have an understory tree. Something that gets fairly tall, but not something that gets 120 feet tall. If there's a little bit of shade on it, it doesn't mind. And that's what we have. 5 foot wide strip, 2 mid-sized trees on either end, the oak, bur oak on the one side and pear on the other, big pecan tree in the middle, and then shrubs in between those, and then we plant a variety of other stuff in there like cannas and strawberries, and we've got some daylily, which is edible as well, and perennial onions and stuff like that. Anyway, what I was saying, right after I got that bur oak planted, something came along and ate the leaves off of it. I was like, what the hell is eating my oak tree? And I looked around and discovered it's that groundhog that started building its burrow under the shed in the backyard. And that was my introduction to the devastation that a groundhog can have. It killed 2 of our seedling pecans, which was not fun. So I'm going to have to go back and replant those. And it dang near killed that bur oak, but the oak grew back after it had its leaves eaten early on. Vicky saying black pepper can be grown in a greenhouse or a high tunnel that doesn't freeze. I mean, a lot of things can. I mean, if you need to push the zone for something that you absolutely have to have, and you're up here in the cold frozen north, zone 7, it's up a greenhouse. I do want to have a large permanent greenhouse someday for keeping a zone 10 environment, just so that I can grow vanilla. I want vanilla orchids. It's an indulgence. I like vanilla. Just seeing apocalyptic where the Maya hunters killed it's appeared. Just a giant hog. Were those Maya? Was it supposed to be Mayan hunters? I have questions. Because at the end of it, that's whenever the Europeans arrive, right? The Spanish arrive at the end of that. It's like, oh. And what they were doing, there are a lot of scenes in there where they were going and they were making the concrete. The Maya were notorious for making concrete. But I got the impression that maybe those were Aztecs, but I could be wrong. they might have been mixing cultures there too, as as can be done whenever somebody doesn't really pay close attention. I don't know exactly how much into concrete making the Aztecs were. I think they were more into living in the areas where the Maya had already built. But the Maya paved everything. That right there, that is very cool. A 22 short took a grizzly bear. Wow. Joe saying the hairdos, they're all Mayan. Yeah, I wondered about. I was like, I don't know. The timelines and everything. Like some of the behavior looks Mayan, some of it looks Aztec, and then the timelines where the Spanish is showing up didn't quite match up either. It's like, yeah, it's a movie. What are we to do with it? I mean, the hairdos are Mayan. I didn't really know the Mayans were quite that bloodthirsty, though. The Aztec, I mean, yeah, they would sharpen their teeth and they would freaking cook you and eat you. Skull rack. How do you know your village is successful? Look at the skulls. That's how you know. So about 3 years to get vanilla beans if you're growing vanilla orchids. Yeah, it takes some work. And you have to hand pollinate. At least if you're growing them in a greenhouse up north, you have to hand pollinate because they're okay. So the entire genus of orchids are unusual, to say the least. They have an entirely different mycorrhizal fungi that associate with them. So typically, we know about a muscular mycorrhizal fungi that associate mostly with your annuals and your fruiting trees and vegetables and stuff like that. You've got your ectomycorrhizal fungi that associate with your hardwoods, your nut producers, and stuff like that. Then you have ericaceous mycorrhizal fungi that associate with the things that like to grow in highly acidic environments, like your mountain laurels, wintergreens, cranberries, blueberries, heather, stuff like that. But orchids have their own subset of mycorrhizal fungi, and I don't know if there's any versions of that fungi that switch off or cross associate with other plants and trees. If they do exist, you're probably not going to find them up here in the frozen north. You'll only find them in the tropics, and then if you're only going to find them if you're lucky, because there's a large amount of that habitat that's been destroyed. So it's getting wiped out before we can even properly study it. But the orchids, the entire genus of orchids, is unusual because many of them cannot live without that fungi association. And the only time that you find that fungi is an association with certain trees. So you'll have an orchid that lives on a tree. And the way it gets its nutrients is its roots go down into the crevices in the bark of the tree. But it's not capturing nutrients that are just running down the surface of the tree. Oh, no. It's getting its nutrients because the fungi that's associated with it is capturing those nutrients and transferring it to the orchid. Now, vanilla orchids are unusual in that family, in that genus, because they are capable of growing in soil to a certain extent. But for the most part, all of those are really highly dependent upon fungal associations, and they really need the right kind of environment to produce. So, yay. But I believe it's possible that the mushroom called Namako, which is one of the ones that you can find it being used for miso soup base, is possibly mycorrhizal and might possibly coexist with members of the orchid family. So one of these days, whenever I have a permanent greenhouse where I can keep and maintain a zone 10 environment, I want to grow Namaco mushroom and orchid together and see if I can make them grow and be healthy. Anyway. So just saying, okay. Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. I thought it was kind of like there's some things that are from one culture, some things that are from another, and it's kind of blended together, and it got weird. Yeah, by the time Spanish arrived, the Mayas were rural farmer hunters and fishermen, and they had a written language, a mathematics system. They used the base 5 mathematics. They already had the concept of the zero, which they had it before the Arabs came up with it. So I mean, they were I don't know about technological. They were very advanced socially. They were very advanced, and the Spanish wiped out as much as they possibly could of that writing system to the point where there's very few documents that exist today that are examples of Mayan writing, other than what you occasionally find, on ruins and stuff like that. But what you find on ruins is not what they would use for everyday communication. So even that is a little sketchy. It's like it kind of means that, but mostly it's symbolic. What they were using for writing, you can't even find anymore. It's because the Spanish got rid of it. But there were thousands of documents and tomes that were destroyed. It kind of makes you wonder. So once upon a time, the system of roads in Central and South America that went through the empires were greater and more extensive than the Roman roads. Advanced civilization, writing, arithmetic, obviously some experience in architecture, stonework, and as such, chemistry. What if the South Americans had wound up going through the Iron Age and going over and cross colonizing Europe? What would the world look like? Hopefully, it would be the Mayans and not the Aztecs. So just saying, Mayan cities didn't exist. A couple hundred years ago, they collapsed. It wasn't until, well, okay, so if you were down there around Mexico City and you're looking at, say, the Pyramid of the Sun down there, I don't think it was the Aztecs that built that. I think it was already there. The question is, well, who did? Was it the Mayans that built it? Was it the Olmecs, or was it somebody else entirely? It's just the places where people stayed and continued to live got maintained. Everything else wound up going back into the jungle. But you can be there walking in the jungle 5 feet away from you. It can be the ruins to an ancient civilization. You'd never know it. All right, good night. Oh, yeah, I've been on for 2 hours now. You're welcome. You're welcome. I haven't covered black powder. I've just talked about making nitrate. That's all. It's for fertilizer. Yeah. That's cool. I didn't know that they had surnames. Interesting to know. Joe's saying a friend's paternal last name is Reyes, Spanish, but her mom's name is Ku. She was originally from Quintana Roo, where Cancun is. So they can trace back to some Mayan ancestry. That's kind of cool. The thing is, Mexicans, people keep on thinking Mexicans, they're Spanish. No, the Spanish were outsiders that came in and introduced a different language and some extra culture, but there were already people living here. They were Americans. They were Indians. So Mexico is full of Indians. It's not full of Spanish people. It's full of Indians. The Spanish are just like the other Euros that came in over to North America. They were latecomers. They already had an ancient culture, already had civilization. But we tend to forget these things, right? Because read the Chinese did voyages of discovery that included the Americas. Oh yeah, you can find off the west coast. I think it's around San Francisco is where you can find them. But you can in the Bay Area. You can find in the bay old stone Chinese boat anchors that are there from good God only knows how long ago, but they're there. Yes, potassium nitrate is saltpeter. It's fertilizer. It's also good for many other things. Yes, it's used as an oxidizer in making gunpowder and making black powder, not gunpowder. Gunpowder is made with potassium perchlorate, which is an entirely different substance. But potassium nitrate or saltpeter is used for food preservation. It's used for the treatment of angina or chest pains. And also, yeah, you can use it to make black powder. But primarily, the main use that we have for nitrate is fertilizer. You're a good mom. It's what parents always teach their children how to make black powder. It's part of your basic education. By the time they're educated enough that you know they're not going to misuse the information, that's the time to sit them down and go, okay, kiddo, here's how it's made. Just in case you ever need to know, here's how it's made. And it's sugar. You use about a 50-50 ratio of nitrate and sugar, and heat carefully until you melt it, and you'll produce a hard. Once it cools, you'll produce a nice hard substance that you can pour into the rocket body whenever you're making rocket engines, and we call it arc candy. It's smoke bomb or rocket propellant. She had to be 45 years old before you showed her. Wow. Well, whatever age they demonstrate the necessary maturity, that's whenever you show them. But it's every parent's duty to teach your children how to make explosives. All right, guys. It's about 2.5 hours in. I just wanted to get touch base with you and let you guys know I haven't dropped dead. We've been busy. We have a lot of irons in the fire. New video coming out very shortly on the second half of the cider, well, maybe the middle third of the cider making process, where we transfer the cider from the old carboy to a new one and get our bottles ready, prepared. We're going to show you the bottle washing tree, that process, and everything goes along with it. The auto siphon and how that functions. And then coming up very, very soon after that, since we're already in the process of drying, get away from that fly. Since we're already in the process of drying the Bermuda grass that we've cut, we're going to have an entire video on making feed for the ducks, but it doesn't have to be for ducks. It could be for chickens. It could be for guinea pigs. It could be for rabbits. It could be for chinchillas. It could be for whatever you've got, animals that you need to feed. Making feed from grass with a feed pelletizing machine, not a meat grinder, but an actual feed pelletizing machine. We've got one, and we'll be demonstrating that here in probably another week or two. So if you've ever been wanting to see a demonstration of that kind of machine in English and not Chinese, I'll probably be one of the first people to show you that machine with English for the language instead of Chinese. So that's going to be fun. We sure paid enough for it. Anyway, guys, good night. It's been wonderful seeing y'all. I'm going to finish off the rest of this and eat what's left of my French fries. Flies off of them, and I will see you shortly. As always, if you found the video informative or entertaining, you know what to do. I will catch you next time. Until then, get out there and get growing. And good night, everybody.